think we are going. All right, sorry about that. I am not a WebEx expert, clearly. So here we go. Yeah, so I am not an expert in PowerShell, but I know, a significant amount where I do a lot of work. I can do a lot of my work with it. Many times when we've done migrations, I have used PowerShell to go from one server, like for example, migrating files, I'll use PowerShell to do all of that. If we're doing significant Active Directory stuff, I try to use PowerShell for all that stuff. The reason I do that is because it's a lot faster than using any GUI-based tools, and it's also Microsoft's recommended method for administration now. So you can, the GUI stuff will always be around, but when you are on let's say a Windows Core server, which has been available since 2008 now, you don't get a GUI. You just get a command prompt, and you can launch PowerShell and do all the stuff from there. So that's why I try to do everything in PowerShell. There is a lot of information that I'm going to leave out, like the formatting of commands and things like that, because this is just like an intro. And this goes really deep, and at the end, I'll share with you informally some other resources you can get to for more information. But if you are an expert and you're like, uh-oh, Prayer's leaving that out, it's like, yeah, I'm doing that purposely because I'm trying not to confuse people. So here we go. So the first thing that you need is I don't run PowerShell from the server. I'll run it from my computer, and so from my client computer. So the first thing you need to do is download the RSAT tools. So that's the remote server administration tools. And if you go to this link, you'll see the various options for your client operating system. And what that will do is install the latest admin tools for the client OS. On the server side, it does not matter what you're running. It's on the client side that you will need this stuff. So that will install all the Active Directory modules, DHCP, DNS, all that fun stuff. So that is the link you need for that. There are two environments for PowerShell. There is the PowerShell command line, and then there's the PowerShell ISC. So the PowerShell command line obviously is the command line. There you go. And the ISC is a more friendly environment. If you're getting into PowerShell for the first time, this is a nice thing to have because you have all the commandlets sitting there for you. If there is an error, it will mark that up. Things like that. The help system is there as well. So that is a tool that's built into Windows. First thing you want to do is when you launch PowerShell for the first time is update the help system. The reason you want to do that is because the commandlets are getting updated frequently. And so whenever you run Windows Update or something like that, there could be some changes to the commandlets after you install the RSAT tools. So this will take a while to run, especially if you've done it for the first time. And I'm going to do it over here. So if you just type in update help, it will go through its thing. It's actually talking to the Microsoft servers and downloading the stuff that it requires, and then just going through the updates. And so for me, it's not going to update much because there isn't much to update because I just did this last night. And it's going to error on a couple of modules, which is okay because I'm not using them. So that's just, okay. You can specify specific modules to update, but I'm just prefer to do everything because it's just quick. What's nice about PowerShell is that you can use wildcards to kind of figure out what you want. So for example, if you want to understand, if you're trying to get something about the services running on the machine, you can do help star service star, and that will find every command that has the commandlet that has service referenced into it. And the one that I was interested in is get service, which is in here somewhere. That's odd. I don't see it there. But Yeah, it's there. It really is there. So I don't know why it's not listed, but it really is. That's pretty weird. Anyway, so that gives me all the commands. And so if you're looking for DHCP stuff, you can just do help star DHCP, and it will show you all the commandlets that are listed for that, DNS, Hyper-V, Office 365, et cetera, et cetera. All the PowerShell commands are self-documented, and all you have to do is do a help and then the name of the command. So, for example, I was referencing get service, which for some reason is missing in the wildcard listing, but the command does exist. If you do a help get dash service, it will tell you a brief listing of what the command will do. Now, if you notice, the syntax is broken up into 3 parts. The reason it does that is because there's 3 ways you can form the command. And if you form the command one way, it's not necessarily going to work for the other syntaxes. For example, if let's see where it would be here. So if you were to form this command using, if you wanted to get the specific name of the service, which is a parameter listed here, then you can't use the syntax that are listed below it because that parameter doesn't exist for that syntax. So as soon as you specify the name of the service, boom, you are locked into the commandlet with this specific syntax. There is more, so if I just do a get service, it's just going to list all the services that are running. If I wanted to get the details on a specific service, that's when I start specifying these parameters. The optional parameters are enclosed in square brackets, and so the reason the get service worked without me typing in anything else is because all these parameters for this syntax are optional because they're all in square brackets. This is the first section here. If I put in the, nope, I'm sorry, I take that back. Yeah, so for this specific syntax here, there are no parameters that are required, and so I can just type it in and boom, there it is. Not all commands are like that, as we will see. So that's the optional. So if there was a mandatory parameter name that you need to specify a parameter, then it will actually prompt you for it, which we'll see later. So we're going to talk about Active Directory management, and this is my recommendation. When you're doing administration, don't do it from the domain controller. Do it from a remote system that you've set up specifically for management. So this could be another server, this could be a computer, but you don't want to be on this thing all the time, like opening Word files, checking email, and stuff like that, because it gives more chances for the system to be compromised. On that system, log into the desktop using just a regular user account, and then launch PowerShell with domain admin rights, and this is the syntax of the command. To do that, when you put in the domain and then your user account, hit enter, it will actually ask you for the password, and then once it does that, it will launch PowerShell under that username. So my environment here is a little different. I am on a computer that is not a member of the domain. It's a member of Azure AD, but my domain controller is actually a server that is running on my computer through VMware Workstation, and then it's set up on a host to VM software-based network, so I can talk to this host via my virtual machine. And then beyond the scope of this specific talk, I have created a connection with PowerShell to that host. So it's basically what it's called is using PowerShell to connect to a remote domain. So if you just Bing that, it will show you how to do that. But that's probably a future talk or whatever. Okay, back to this. You want to import this specific module. So within PowerShell, there's all sorts of modules that you need to load depending on what you're doing. So if, for Active Directory, you want to import module Active Directory, and what that will do is load all the Active Directory commandlets. I've already done that, but I can do it again. So I'm actually going to launch a new PowerShell window. Import module Active Directory. Okay, because I have a, yeah, sorry, that's not going to work. So I have something called a PS drive opened up to my AD over here, so that's not going to work. But I'll show you what it looks like from the server itself, which I just told you not to do. But this is my test VM, so I'm allowed to do that. Do that really quick. So you'll see something flash up really quick, and then it's loaded. And now all your commandlets for Active Directory are now up and running inside that PowerShell session. And then if you don't know what commandlet you want to use, you can, like we did previously, you can do a search for all commandlets. And let's do that here. While that's running, I do have, I didn't get that screenshot, bummer. Here are all the different commandlets for Active Directory. As you can see, there's quite a few. And they keep adding more. So every time there's an update to RSAT, you'll see more of these commandlets sitting here. So those are all the commands that you have available to you. We're just going to look at a few because this is just an intro. Get AD user is very useful for just finding information about users or users in an OU and things like that. Because this is an intro, we don't know anything about this command, so let's find out what we can do with it. So if we do help get AD user, it will tell us there are 3 ways we can form the command via these syntaxes. And then, this will give you the info that you need to just do some basic stuff. So if you look at the second syntax here, you see that here is an example of a mandatory parameter. So the AD user is not enclosed in square brackets, which means that that is a required thing to do. So if I do get AD user, it's going to ask me, okay, you need to provide some more information. So I know the name of the user. Whoops, I guess I don't. I don't know why I did that, but we will continue on. Sorry about that. Yeah, if you look at towards the bottom of the help, there are some remarks, and it gives you commands on how to get more help. And so if you look at this, and you're like, I don't know what this is talking about, give me some examples. So we can copy that and paste it, or you can type it, whatever. And it'll give you some examples of how to form the command. This is just using some example OUs. It's not anything in production or anything like that. And so this will give you some examples. The other thing you can do is just do a full listing on the help, and it will give you the entire help file. And so then you can just read through that. And of course, you can find this on the internet if you want to, but the point is that you can find all this information within PowerShell itself. And so this will go through each parameter, describe what it's used for, and things like that. And when you get more advanced into PowerShell, this becomes useful because it's like, okay, is it a string or is it a character string, and all that kind of stuff. It gets a little crazy. You have to start understanding the differences between the kinds of input, kinds of output, stuff like that. But we're not going to get into that. So that, I just wanted to show you that you can get some more help if you find that basic help isn't useful. That's that. And we talked about this. What is nice is that for every command that you can export it, and then all you have to do is specify the parameter out-file and then tell it where you want it to go. And so I've already done this. And so I've exported it to a file. I'm going to edit this and then just show you. Like, that's the same output, but I've put it out to a file. So if you're the person that wants to keep a binder full of things printed out, this might be useful to you. Just remember that this could get updated. So it's probably okay to keep it in a text file, but just from time to time, you do want to make sure that you update that so that you can get the most up-to-date information about it. So that is that, and that's same thing there. So, okay, so this is a mistake that I have in here. For the, if we want to use the, it's not the second syntax, it's the other, it's the first one. So I know the name of a user that I'm interested in, the username of a user, and so, you know, I just want to get some information about that user. So I issue this command, get user, the parameter name is identity, and then the username is testuser01, and then it gives me some very, very basic information about the user. And most of us are like, okay, that is in this OU, and yeah, I don't know what the rest of this is. Well, like, is that all the command can do? If you look at the detailed, that is like the default output of the command. If you want to get more information, if you read within the help file, there's this text, and it's basically saying there are more properties. Look at the information on the properties parameter. So this here. So if I'm sorry, if I look at the help file again, looking for the properties parameter description, it says that you can specify the asterisk to find out what other properties are there. And so when you do that, it looks like this. And then you get a significant amount of more information. And I couldn't fit it all on the screen. There's a lot more. So basically every single attribute of the user is listed there when you do that. So that's kind of nice. You can, if you're trying to find some specific information, you know the username, okay, boom, really quickly you can put that information in there. So now this is kind of some more detailed stuff, but I'll just reference the terms to you. When you issue a command to PowerShell, all of the output is considered an object, and then within the object you have different members, and these are the different members. The reason that they're using this terminology is that PowerShell is a programming language, and they're using similar terms there. A lot of people will look at PowerShell and say, oh, wow, in Linux I can use the grep command the same way to find the information that I'm getting to. It's not the same thing. With Linux, when you're using grep and the various text manipulation methods, you're manipulating text, which is fine. It works great. I use that all the time. But you're just working with text. With PowerShell, you're not working with text. You're working with real data. And so I just want to make sure you understand that, okay, you're not filtering out the text that's available to you. You're actually modifying the object that is displayed so that you can do more with it. And again, that's just more info that I probably shared with you. I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm just trying to make sure that you understand the terminology. So all of the output is considered an object, and then the various, I guess you could call them variables, these are called members. We can ask PowerShell to display specific members now that we know what they are. Okay, like I don't want to see all that other stuff. I just want to know their name, their UPN, and the last time they logged in. So let's say you have a teacher, they're like, hey, did this kid log in? They say that they log in, they do the work, and then whatever. You can issue that command, and if this is if the data for this object, for this member is blank, they have never logged on. So that person is lying, saying that they have logged on, and you can put them in detention or whatever happens nowadays. So that's how you select members, and you can select any of this data, and it will get displayed for you. And again, if you wanted to output it to a file, you would just pipe it to out-file and then give it a file name. Now, just as an example, I specified the same command for somebody here at CSI, just to show you how the information would be displayed for like someone that did log on. So it would look like that, which is nice. You don't have to like manipulate it to convert it to date. It's already set up as a date. And that's in Active Directory, this information. Now, let's say you want to like find out, okay, I want to know everybody in this OU the last time they logged on, and I don't know their names. Well, what we can do is say, we are going to issue this command here. So we're actually changing this. We're going to use a different syntax now. We're going to use the one where you could use the filter. And what I'm filtering is on star, where normally I would put in a username or look for a group or something like that, which is, again, more kind of like beyond the scope of that, how to form the query here. But I'm just going to look for everything, and then another parameter name that is available to me is search base, and then you can put in the location of the OU that you want to query. And so I just have in my fake AD, I have this built out, and then if I issue the command, here are all these users, and because they're just stupid users, they don't have a logon date. But then if they were real users, you could see the logon date there. One thing I have discovered, just FYI, if the person locks the workstation, and when they log on again, they unlock it, that's not considered a logon. And so what you will see is the last date that they actually logged on to the domain, which will be displayed here. So when they're at the control of the screen, when the computer boots up, or you've logged off, that's the information here. So that's if you're looking for everybody. And again, if you wanted to output it, you could output it to a text file, but you know what? This stuff is in columns. Maybe I want to sort it a different way. Excel is great for that. So you can pipe that to export-csv and then specify the name of the file, and it will give you this. And then you can delete that first row and then sort any way that you want. And if you find out that, you know what, I need some more information, well, just go back to the listing of the members within the object, and then you can just go through and pick out the stuff that you need. Maybe you needed the home directory. Maybe you needed the last, the last log off and whatever. So there's a lot of flexibility that you have there. Okay, another commandlet that's useful is changing the password. So typically you go into the GUI and, look for the person and right-click, reset password, blah, 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 blah. With one line, you can do the same thing. Just set AD account password. Here's how you form it. This is an example of where the data needs to be submitted in a specific format, but of course you're not going to know the encrypted information. And so what this does is it forms a subcommand which will take this text and converts it to an encrypted string. So that is a useful command. If you want to prove the password was changed, I did it for, let's see, test user 01. I issued this command, which now I'm using the password last set member, and I'm doing it in the whole U just to show you the difference. So this is all in universal time, so at 11:01 p.m., I changed this person's password. If they change their password, same thing. It will show that information here. Okay, now what if you want to change everybody's password in an OU? Well, we can use that. What we can do is you can pipe commands into other commands. And so what we're going to do is first get a listing of all the users that are in the guidance office OU. That's the first one. But then we're going to pipe that information into the set password command. And so we're getting a list of all the users, and then we're going to pipe that information into this command. And so what that will do is change the password for everybody in that OU. You can do this by, if you were looking for group, you could do the same thing. If you're, if you didn't know the name of if you wanted to if you wanted to specify the username here, you could use the longer command to do that. So there's a lot of ways you could do that. Just look at the help for AD account password to see what's there, and then you can look at this one to see the different ways you can get that data. So that's kind of neat. And what I did here to prove that the password was used, I just ran the previous command again. Okay, so this is my, I created just a test account using this command. And so again, you can do this all in the standard, users and computers or the Active Directory Administration Center, whatever. But it's a lot faster if you can start recognizing the commands, how to do it in PowerShell. So just some really basic information here. I'm specifying the name of the account, which is this is the CN, the container name. The password, again, it needs to be encrypted. I want them to change the password at first log on, and after I issue that, you can see that it's flagged here. The first name, home directory, et cetera, you can, if you do a get help new AD user, and look at all the objects that are available, all the members that are available for this object, you'll see all the various parameters that are available to you. I'm not using them all. So that's just a quick way to create a user. And what about if I want to create a whole bunch of users? So I create a file with the fields of what I want to import into Active Directory. And so if I'm going to bring up my PowerShell here. So that's the syntax of the command. There's only one, and these are all the various parameters that you can use. And it's basically everything that you would typically specify in the GUI, and it's also giving the type of information. So if it's, for example, allow, where is something that everybody would recognize? Password not required. It's just a 1 or a 0. So 1 for required, 0 for not required. And so here, I'm just going to do something very basic. I'm giving it a description. A lot of schools will use this for the student ID field. Given name is first name, surname is the last name, the name, SAM account name, user principal name, and then the password. So just, I could have specified more. I'm just not, didn't want to do everything right now as an example. So that's my CSV, and you can easily export that out of your student management system. And then what I do is I specify, okay, I'm going to pipe this file. So I use this command called import CSV, which will allow me to take everything in that file and pipe it, the tells the command that, all right, I'm specifying variables that are within this file. And then what I'm doing is saying, okay, for the given name, look inside the file, look at this field, surname, look inside the file and look at this field, the $_period, specify that that's a variable that's coming from inside the file. And so I'm doing that for all of this information until I close it, and then I'm saying, okay, for everybody, I just want the password never expires to be true, and then I'm going to specify the path for the OU. And so if you know, like, if there's some information that is not dynamic, for example, maybe the location and address and stuff like that, you can always specify that on the command line itself. You don't have to necessarily put that in the file. So, whoops. Once I do that, I can look at my AED, which is over here. Uh-oh. So I'm going to go into my AD, go into building 1, go to students, and there they are. Now, on some of them, you'll see that there is an error. The reason for that is because the password doesn't comply with the requirements of the domain. So that's one thing you would have to look out for. I just ignored that because this is just an example. Now, that's just to give you an understanding of how fast this is. I have a file here with, where did it go? Mock data 1 CSV. So this file has 990 names in here. So I used a random name generator on the internet that I found to create a whole bunch of different names. And now I'm going to import them into Active Directory. And I just wanted to do this live for you just to show you how fast this is. Again, the password requirements are going to be, I don't think it's going to meet all the password requirements, which is okay. And also, this is a random name generator, and so some of these names will actually overlap, and so you'll see the errors there. So I'm going to use that same command, except just specify a different file and then a different OU. So I'm just going to go up because I did test this out before to make sure that it would work. So, okay, I'm using mock data 1, and then I'm piping it into new user. And this time I'm going to put it into that second building OU. And if I hit enter and wait. Here we see that, okay, there is a name already in use. It's fine. A lot of the, at least I've seen that you can actually tell your student management system to generate a unique name, which is nice. And so you can avoid this in the CSV. You don't have to go back and correct this. And we're done. So I just created 1,000 users. That was, I don't know, I didn't time it, but that seemed to me that was pretty quick. So now if I go into Active Directory and go into the second building, students, here are all my users. So if I don't think that was 2 minutes, so between a minute, 60 to 90 seconds to create 1,000 users, that's pretty quick. Show me any commercial tool that can do it that fast. Yes, with the commercial tools, you get all the reporting and stuff like that. But as you get more familiar with PowerShell, you will see that there's a lot you can do with it. For example, like these errors are valid. Okay, I needed to create a username, but it didn't happen. And so if you have, let's say you create a scheduled task where the guidance department puts this file in a secure location, and then you have this PowerShell command fire looking at that secure location, at night or something like that. And that way you literally are not doing any work to create students. The guidance department is handling all that. If there are errors, you want to know about them because it's a scheduled task. Well, there's a few things you can do. You can output it to a text file, all of this stuff, so that you can review it on a daily basis, or you can use a PowerShell. You can output this into a PowerShell commandlet that will send you an email. So you can just look at that, or have that email go to somebody else so that they can review it and open a ticket to get that corrected, et cetera, et cetera. But again, that's just getting a little more complicated. I wanted to keep this simple, just to get us started to see if this is something that would be useful to you. That, yes, I do want to get more detailed into it and whatnot, but I'm going to open up my notepad and just give you some other tools that you have. So there is a great book called Learning PowerShell in 30 Days of Lunches. So excellent book that will really give you some excellent information on how to use PowerShell. And it's all things that you can use like for work. It's not these obscure commands and stuff like that. It's just, it's using, you don't have to have a fake domain controller or anything like that. You can just do everything off your computer using the various ways to look at the data on your computer, and then you can extend that into Active Directory. There is a great learning website called Pluralsight. It is subscription-based. Right now, it's $29.99 a month. We don't make any money off of that. That's just I'm personally telling you, this is not a CSI thing. Like, I have a subscription to it, and it is awesome. So there's a PowerShell course there written by a guy that I know who teaches IT at the University of Madison, and he has an outstanding PowerShell course. And it's not just watching PowerPoints. It's actually, you have to do some work and go through the modules and stuff like that. And then you get access to all the other content on there as well. And so if you wanted to look at other stuff there, that's very valuable. There is a company called Sapien, I think I spelled that right, that makes a PowerShell Studio suite where in my opinion, like they say, like this is for beginners to advanced. I looked at it and I'm like, this is for like some serious PowerShell folks where they're making some complex scripts and stuff like that. But what's nice about it is you get some more detailed help, and you get their versions of their help and stuff like that. So for some people, they find it useful because they're getting information that isn't from Microsoft, but it's helping you use the commands that are coming from Microsoft. So that's that. And then there is, I think it's called Idera, which makes a similar product. It's just not as expensive. And then there was a company that was bought by Dell called Quest, and they had a bunch of PowerShell commandlets for Active Directory. And what they did is there is like a lot of annoying, at least there used to be a lot of weird nuances with the Active Directory commandlets that people got annoyed with. So what Quest did is they released a bunch of commandlets that they wrote that you can use that kind of simplify the process. So for example, this command to create users, with their version of it, all you have to do is specify the name of the file, and that's it. You don't have to specify all this information because their version of the command that actually goes into the file to retrieve this information. So it's little things like that which you might find useful. I don't use them just because I want to know the native stuff from Microsoft. And at some point, like if this stuff becomes outdated, they're not going to update it anymore from what I understand because it's now owned by Dell. So I'm going to stop sharing my monitor. I'm going to hopefully unmute you. There we go. I've unmuted you all. Are there any? Me that I never want to use it. Are there any questions? Any questions, Dan? Actually, you know what? Let me show you one more quick thing. Let me go back to sharing. Okay, so I don't like to use users and computers anymore just because it's outdated, and at some point it's just going to, the whole idea of snap-ins from Microsoft, I don't know if you've realized this, but they're going away. You're seeing more of this kind of style administrative console. The reason they're doing this is because it's web-friendly. So that you can actually, there's a version of this in Azure, which will allow you to manage all the stuff up there. They don't put ADUC up there. Let's say you go in here and then like you just create a user. Do something really quick. And then we got to give it a password, right? Password 1234 exclamation point. Okay, so I just created this user. If I go down here and then look at PowerShell history, it will give me the PowerShell command that I just issued. And so if you're like, oh my God, Prayer, like there's no way I'm going to remember all this stuff. Well, okay, that's fine. Just start using this, the Administrator Center, and review the command, the thing that you just did, so that you can actually use the command. And so here it's actually going through a bunch of commands. And so it's creating the user, it's setting the password, and some other things, setting the parameters for the actual user object. So you can just do the thing that you've been using the you can do the same things that you've been doing using the Administrative Center and just start reviewing this stuff. A great one is, so if I wanted to do something significant, I don't know. I don't think I have anything here, so let's make this. Let's highlight them all. That's not letting me. My shift isn't working. There we go. So I just want to disable them all. Okay, so now they're disabled. You can see the command that it issued to disable the account. So that's one way you can just review what the command is. And you should really get used to PowerShell because at some point you're going to see more functionality built into PowerShell than you will with the GUI. A perfect example of this is Office 365. You can do like 95% of the stuff that you want to do with the GUI in Office 365, but you also need to know PowerShell to do some of the nuanced stuff. Like you can't change the username from within Office 365, you have to use PowerShell to do it. I don't know why that is, but that's just one thing. And from what I've been told is that you're going to see more and more and more of this happening. The GUI tools will always be there, but I think what, probably like in 5 or 6 years, you'll probably just see the GUI stuff as really basic, and then the PowerShell for, so you'll be able to disable accounts, create users, and stuff like that. But then for more advanced stuff, like, there's even here, like there is no bulk way to add users. You have to use PowerShell for stuff like that. So I just wanted to point that out to you. And you can see this in Exchange. You can see this in SQL. They always will show the PowerShell command that they're outputting after it's completed successfully, I believe, so that you can also review it for those things as well. Okay, so were there any questions? Okay. If you are interested in seeing the more advanced stuff, just let me know. You can email me or Lisa or support. And again, if there's something that you want to do in PowerShell that you do, let me phrase it this way. If there's something automated that if there's something that you do on a regular basis and you want to see if it can be automated with PowerShell, give us a call. Because if there's something that you're doing that we can replace that can be automated, that allows you to do other things that are probably more interesting. So that's the beauty of all this stuff is, it's not trying to make things more difficult. It's just trying to make tasks automated so you can actually do different, things that you actually want to do. So, all right, cool. Yeah, you all know how to get a hold of us. So if there's nothing else, I'll talk to you all later.